Well, I feel lucky. How did it all begin? Well, it began with my birth, I suppose, and growing up on a farm and learning how to be independent and self-sufficient and uh, got skills. I thank my parents, my father especially, for teaching me how to use my body, how to work, how to grow things. How to be self-employed, because there was no applying for a job. There was just getting up in the morning and milking the cows. So that's where it began. Then some years later, I went to seminary and I found out I didn't want to be a preacher after all, and I ended up being a carpenter and got back outside. I spent a couple of years working as a social worker in an office, and I got sick, and I realized that I couldn't work in an office. It wasn't good for my body. So I got back outside, got a job as a carpenter's helper, and I said, oh yeah, I can do this, and I'm getting my body back too. So then the carpentry, it can go anywhere. It's a creative trade. So you see trees fall and you cut them up and you see things that you can make out of them. The thing is, to have a lack of planning in your life create spaces where you can see opportunities. When I got out of school for the last time, I was going to get married, and the girl canceled the wedding. She got cold feet, and anyway, my plans got just cut off at the knees, right? So that left me wide open for an opportunity, and a friend invited me down to Washington, D.C., and lived there for a while and got my education about how not to run a government, or the inefficiency of government activities, etc., etc., etc. I guess how I got to be an artist, I was born with that in my brain somewhere, and it sneaked out through carpentry. Well, I just played. See, my work was play. I played with my work, or worked with my play. I started drawing. You draw drawings, to make a building, and then you let the drawings go south. Right? You say, oh, and then I created, it really started with Fat Cat, this character that I created. Fat Cat is a self-motivated robot who speaks in pictures. And when I created him and drew him on the paper and then just put a big balloon in front of me, like you see in the cartoons, and just filled it in with color. So to go to see life with an uncensored mind, not knowing what you're going to get. That's what art is for me, is you take a pen and your paper, and then your arm moves the pen, right, and you watch what appears on the paper. And slowly but slowly you learn how to draw. And you learn what curves are pretty, right? What pleases your eye. So you put all those things together in different ways, and then you get out some paints and you start painting it, and it's knowing how to play. It's knowing how to play. And I'll say that again. It's knowing how to play in a way that pleases you and your friends, and finding other people to play with you. This is what makes life for me exciting, to find friends who play music and then play with them, right? Or build with them. Rule number one for a good life: move toward whatever is joyful for you. Do your best at letting that be your job, and keep your eyes open to opportunity. I remember in elementary school, Friday afternoon was art. A one-room school, all 8 grades, and there were 12 children, so most people were in a grade by themselves. We had a big class. We had 3 of us together, the same age. Friday afternoon, I remember one time drawing a little house, and it was a blue house with a pink roof. And years later, I went off to college, and I was going down the highway, on the interstate, and at that time, Howard Johnson's? Howard Johnson's was a roadside stop with a blue house with a pink roof, and I said, oh, there's my house. I've always liked bright color. Bright. Always bright color, because it cheers you up. Bright color. For me, I don't know, bright color cheers me up. So one of the goals is to put a splash of color in the world to cheer people up. I remember the color wheel, Art 101, you know, the color wheel. The primary color is yellow and blue and red. Yeah, and how they work all together. Mostly working with color, what happens is you learn what pleases your eye. And you learn that shades, you can do shades from follow the color wheel, right? When you lay it all out like that in stripes, you know, it makes a beautiful rainbow picture. So you learn by experimenting what colors go where. And another thing that happens is when I'm doing a drawing, like I'm going now, I'll sit and I'll look at it, and I'll look at one particular space, right, one part of it. I'll say, okay, what color? And if a color comes to mind, without thinking, that's the color I use. It doesn't always work that way. And then once you get one color down, then you can begin to see where the next color might be, right? You follow that color wheel again. Or do what pleases your eye, because you've learned what combinations you like pink and aqua together are just startlingly good. A bright pink and a turquoise, those two together. I wrote in my diary a couple of days ago that I'm never quite content with my art. I'm always looking for that next one that might outdo what I've done so far. You understand? In me, there's always a need to push to see what can happen next. The frustration comes in, you do a drawing and it doesn't even come close to anything as good as you've done before, right? So you have to throw that one away and start doing another one. It's rare that I throw them away, though, because who's to say that this one isn't art, right? Just because it doesn't please my eye, it's not necessarily a bad piece. It's just another one. But some are offensive to me, so I just tear them up and throw them away because they're not good enough to put out there. Yeah, well, I could show you one drawing. It's small now because I tore it in half. I kept half of it. Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. And this is part of a series I've done called Otra Lengua. Because it was inspired by going online and looking at script or alphabets like the Japanese characters or the Chinese or cuneiform, the different languages. And some of the forms, like the Mayans, inspired these figures. So I call them Otra Lengua, a series of characters that could be letters in a language. And these very easily turn into little people, you just put a head on them and they're dancing. So it's a language you can dance to. I don't remember what the other half was, to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. And I had drawn something on the back side, but it didn't work, so I turned it over, drew this one. I have a whole stack of drawings that are waiting for somebody who likes to color. If you know of somebody, could be a child or an adult, somebody who likes to color. I got lots of things. I've given some to friends to give to their children to color. Mm-hmm. Mostly, it's easier to draw them than it is to color them in, because coloring them in takes a lot of time and can be tedious. So I just put it aside and I draw another one. And they sell this pack of watercolor paper, 7 by 10. You get a pack of 50 for like $10. So you get 50 pieces of paper that you can draw on. And I go through a pack every couple months. probably. The pens come, in different, the width of the line that it draws, you can get a 5 or a 8 or a 10 or a 12, and the bigger the number, the thicker the line it'll lay down. And I learned to use the thicker lines because what the thicker line does gives you it's easier to stay within the lines because you can go halfway through a black line and it won't show up because black will cover it. Thicker the black line is, easier to stay between the lines. I'll tell you where the frustration has been for me, and that is with watercolors. I've done a number of watercolors, but I'm frustrated because when I don't do watercolors for a while and I go back to watercolors again, it seems like I have to learn all over again what paints will do what, and I've been dissatisfied with what I could do with watercolors. But now I just discovered there's something at the art supply place that's not acrylic and it's not watercolor, it's something in between. And she said it was like watercolor, but it's a little thicker. You can make it be opaque. Ooh, this is exactly what I've been looking for, right? It's not quite a watercolor. Watercolors are harder to manage. These drawings, you see right here, 3 of those are from a series of greeting cards which I drew and colored. That was a continuous picture story. I started with one card and then I put in one next to it and continued the story and next to it and next to it and made a continuous on the road to picture story. And I got like 30, I forget where it is, about 40 cards long. And it was more than 20 foot in length, the whole thing. And these 3 right here were part of that. I copied part of those because I liked them so well that I used them on this lamp. I made a copy of all 43. I made at least one copy of all 43, and I gave the whole set little by little as I was doing it to a good friend of mine. So there's a copy of it out there. And then a friend of Godard's, Meredith, came by. She saw it, and I had framed it in 3 pieces, and she bought it. She liked it. She bought it. She had a place where she could hang it, because I didn't have a place there to hang it. It was too long. I can't draw the same thing twice in a row. It always comes out differently because the pen has a movement of its own. The head doesn't always do what you think it should do or want it to do. That's why you have to give up on images and just draw. Because when I have an image in mind, when I try to draw something from an image that I've seen, I say, oh, I like that one a lot, I'm going to try to do something like that. Forget it. It's always frustrating because it's not nearly as good as the image that you saw that you're trying to copy. So get rid of all the images and let the hand and the pen create a new one that you've never seen that can please you because it's that different. I don't have to decide what I'm going to draw. I don't even have to decide what pen. I'm just going to pick up a pen, get some paper, and see what happens, right? Somehow I've managed to keep a child alive in me who just loves to play. And I'll tell you what makes me sad is that some of my best playmates have died. And I miss Bob, who came and sat on the porch in the evening, and he would tell me a story and I'd add to the story, and then he'd put a voice in. He'd talk like the Indian man or whatever. And then he got his tape recorder out and he recorded us having our storytelling. I remember the most fun we had one evening is when this could be offensive to some, but I do a cleft palate. You know what a cleft palate is? The person who talks funny because they got a problem with their nose and they can't quite talk right because they got a cleft palate. So I grew up with a girl who had a cleft palate, and her father had a cleft palate too. And what I learned was, number one, cleft palate is not a handicap. It's not a problem, because the father, he was a John Deere dealer, and everybody could understand him. Didn't matter. He just talked different, right? And his daughter, didn't matter to her. She sung in the choir with the rest of it. She just had a little different voice, right? But it can be really funny to mimic them, right? So we did that, and then he'd back the thing up, and then he'd record over what was. See, this man knew how to play, and he was a writer as well. He wrote some good stories. So this is what I'm looking for these days: somebody who likes to play with words, a word player, to come and sit on my porch, because he's died, and my other poet friend's gotten sick, I think, with diabetes or something. And so I don't see him anymore. So I'm saying, oh, shit, porch is empty tonight. Right?
Hey, porch.
The porch is empty tonight. I don't have any passengers. Sometimes it becomes a chore in the middle of it because I want it to be done. But the thing you learn slowly but surely, hopefully, is that good art requires patience. I mean, you cannot hurry it up. You just cannot hurry it up. You have to take each step as it comes and do it precisely, or with your best, if not precisely, I mean with your best shot, right? Even some days you don't even go in the shop because you're not inspired enough to turn on a saw, right? And those that, that's vacation day. You declare a well day. That's what you do. To keep from getting sick, you need to declare well days and give yourself days without any responsibility except to feed yourself or maintain your body. Growing up on a farm, we were Christians, right? And Sunday was a day of rest. I mean, it was required of you that you rest one day a week. Thank God for one day a week to rest. It gives your body a chance to stay well. So it's still a practice with me. This is Sunday today, right? You don't turn on a saw on Sunday. You don't get a drill out. You don't go to work on Sunday. You can allow yourself to play, which a drawing is okay. But your job on Sunday is to rest, because this is your wellness day once a week. This is what maintains your body. Last time I worked on a Sunday, somebody wanted me to cut a piece of wood, and I touched my finger to the saw blade. I said, okay, that's it. Never on a Sunday. You don't turn on the saw on Sunday. It's one of the 10 commandments, right? It's that important. 6 days you work and 1 day you take a break. Yeah, it is a commandment for me. I like to follow those commandments as much as I can. But you know what Jesus said, there's only 2 commandments, really. That's love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? He says, that covers all the law and the prophets. If you can do that, then you've honored the law. You don't get caught on your sins because you'll repeat them if you do. And you do repeat them. And well, as I wrote in one poem, there's no solution to the problem of being human. You're going to fail. You're going to do all the things that humans do. You're going to feel sad and happy and depressed, and you're going to get angry. And it's clear now, after 80 years of life, it's absolutely crystal clear that the nature of humans is violence and aggression. War is always present with us. This is a human thing. It won't end. It's part of being human is you get lonely. Loneliness has never been the main problem. It's never been a significant problem. For me personally, what's more of a problem is having to deal with other people, of not being alone. The time not alone is a bigger job than the time alone. So loneliness comes. What I learned for myself anyway is that loneliness comes and then it goes and it comes. But loneliness is not necessarily solved by being with other people. You can sit with loneliness. I think I would say now is if you're trying to solve loneliness, or like you said, go out and drink or whatever change on, the best way to solve loneliness is to sit with it and have a cup of tea and let it have its way for that day, knowing that it's only a guest, like all those other feelings, and it will leave. And all the things that you do to try to get rid of loneliness keeps it with you because you're trying to get rid of it. You understand what I'm saying? You can't get rid of it by doing anything to rid yourself of it. You solve it by just being yourself and sitting with who you are. Socrates or whoever it was says, know thyself, right? That's number one advice. Know yourself, know who you are. If you know who you are, really, well, there's lots of things to affect that. Other people can get in your way, but if you really know who you are, then you can probably figure out what it is you're supposed to do, because you'll be you. If you know who it is you are, you will move toward the things that are you, hopefully. A job that I've had every day of my life. I grew up on a farm, and I was a shy farm boy. I was not social, very social. I was, today's terms, I guess they might call me a bookworm or a nerd or something. Not that I was just another farm boy who was shy. So the one job that I've had every day of my life is overcoming shyness so that I can do the many things that I know that I can do. So at the end of the day, it feels good to be by myself where I don't have to worry about being shy. And people, I suppose, might say, oh, well, you're not shy. Or you can say that, but inside I'm still the shy farm boy who's overcoming shyness by being here and being present with you. I'm choosing to enjoy not being shy today. Well, that's what Sunday's partly about, is you can be shy if you like. But, well, now it's not a problem for me because, I got every day by myself, much as I want. Well, a few months back, I was supposed to play music at the Church of the Wreck, and I was going to play this cantilé. And that week, I had a bad week, and on Thursday I was practicing, and one of the strings broke. I said, oh, shit. I called the preacher and said, I ain't going to make it on Sunday because there was one broken string. So then I looked for strings. It's not a common instrument. I looked for strings, and I found them on eBay, I think it was. And I waited for them to come, and they finally arrived from Poland. But in the meantime, I was playing the thing with one broken string. And it became clear that one broken string simply does not stop the music, right? So I'd like to play for you a tune called One Broken String. It's a perfect little place for me to be, to express my creativity. One broken string.
Yeah, Dino.